Hey guys, it's Damane here with HobbiesofaMan once again, and today we're going to be doing another What Talk episode. Today we're going to be looking at episode 5 of season 2. So it opens up on the Shanchan, and Suroth and Turok are having this kind of this pissing match. They're trying to power play each other, but of course Suroth loses because she's at a lower standing, and because she's actually wrong here because she decided to follow Ishamel's guidance and go down to a Tuan's mill and see what they could get out of it, right? She brings Ingtar and Loyal, and she tries to be like, here, we brought you these cool slaves, but it doesn't really work out, and it doesn't satisfy Turok, right? So he decides to remove her special nails, and she has been forced to be banished from the court until her nails regrow, which I'm guessing probably took years and years. So I'm not really sure how that's going to work, but that's what happens. Ishamel tries to smooth some ruffled feathers, and he presents the Horn of Valir, tanks through Pan and Fane to Turok. And then later on in the show, in the episode, when Ishamel has time to have Suroth alone, he gets mad at her for being a dumb bitch and for trying to do the power play with Turok and losing, and she tries to get uppity and tell Ishi that she's better because she's a Shanchan, and he reminds her of her place quite easily, and so that works out pretty well. I like this part of the story. I thought it was good. It was interesting. The costuming is really, really intricate and cool, but I think it's accurate. But they're weird shaped heads and giant weird like mohawk things just look ugly. But I think that's part of their style, so I can't get too mad at it, but it does look like grotesque. I don't know, that hairstyle just doesn't work. I think it doesn't work specifically because with Suroth, it does look like she's wearing like a bald cap, and then there's like fake hair on top of it. So I don't know, maybe there's a better way to do it for later appearances, for later seasons. I'm not really sure, but it works out well. I enjoyed this part of the story. Then we have the Moraine and Rand plotline where they're running away from Lanfear, and I don't know if it's because it's hard to run in a dress or because Moraine's actress is just not that athletic, but she runs kind of funky. It's kind of cute, but also it just kind of looks like she's never run in her life. And I don't know, maybe I'm sure I look weird running, and I would look especially weird running in like a split dress, right? But something about the way that they captured that shot just looks kind of weird. It happened at the end of the last episode too, but it's fine. Lanfear wakes up through the use of some dark power. I think it is the true power, the dark version of the one power. I'm not really sure how that works. I haven't read far enough to know that, but I am aware that is a thing that happens because I watch other people talk about it, right? So yeah, she gets revived here. The way that she's revived is different from in the books. I have gotten past the beginning of Lord of Chaos, where it's when they explain or they show how certain characters, as long as they've not been balefired and basically removed completely from the pattern, are able to be resuscitated. Their souls can be removed from where they're supposed to be resting and shoved into new bodies with the Dark One's power. And I think I see the resurrection of two characters. I can't remember which ones they are. I think one of them is Lanfear at the beginning of Lord of Chaos, but I can't remember exactly. But it's different from how it happens here. But it doesn't really matter. The point is that they revived. How doesn't really matter. However, I do think that this is a problem because in a season and a half, we've had like 7 or 8 fake out deaths. And at some point, it's like, I don't care anymore because no one actually dies anytime there's a death scene. And then when there is a death scene, it's like, oh, well, they could probably come back. So it does remove that element of like tension if, any Aes Sedai basically seems to survive any possible, hurt. And then the normal people don't. But because people are learning about this, I don't know how they would know who can revive and who can't. And I find it to be not that great. Now, is this necessarily a problem with adapting stuff? No, I think it's a problem directly with the writing, because there's a lot of times in the first season where fake out deaths did not have to happen. And in this second part, the few fake out deaths that have happened so far are pretty impactful and meaningful. And one of them is directly tied to a character's like progression, so you can't remove that one. But because you had so many in the previous season, you have a problem now. And I think that is negative, that is a problem, that is something that people have not really talked about that much, but that it is definitely an issue. So we'll see how it goes. Hopefully they don't continue to do this, because it is kind of annoying to see everyone die and then come back immediately afterwards, right? So yeah, eventually Moraine and Rand find a stable house. They take the owner with them, they kill the extra horse, and then Moraine forces the owner to take all the horses with her and force her to follow the road to Tar Valon, and then she hides with Rand, and they wait for Lanfear to pass them. Now, shouldn't Lanfear have a way to tell where they are? Like, there has to be a way for Aes Sedai or users of the One Power to enhance their senses, right? I'm pretty sure there is, because I could have sworn that there's an eavesdropping weave. And so there should be a way for Lanfear to have like heat-seeking vision or something. Like, I don't know how it was that easy to evade her, especially because they were like not deep in the forest. They were like a meter or two away from the path where Lanfear passes. And they don't even wait that long before coming out and running the other direction, right? So again, I don't think the situations that are happening necessarily are wrong. Is that there's a certain lack of like thought put into them that feels kind of weird, especially when you sit down to think about it. Like, when I first watched this episode the first time, I was like amazed, I was enthralled, I was very happy with it. The second time I was still happy with it, but I did start noticing a few issues, and I think this is a problem, because if your show can't stand up to a single rewatch, there's a problem there. So I don't know. But Lanfear catches up to the stable owner. She talks to her. She continues forward, so she doesn't even turn back to go find Rand and Moraine, which honestly there really is only one place to go. So she could have just gone back to Carian and dealt with it, but she decides to continue forward towards Tar Valon, and then she just decides to wait until Rand or Moraine goes to sleep and then invade their dreams. And I'm not sure how Rand and Moraine know that she's going to do this, and that's why they chose to not sleep. But eventually, Moraine manages to decide, you know what, actually we could use this to our advantage if we force her to interact with Rand and then use her clear attraction to him in order to get some information out of her. Again, how do they... I don't remember exactly how they realize that she's going to attack them and tell her on Riyadh. I think I guess it's just known that Lanfear is good at it, but I'm not sure. So I hadn't really thought about that until now. So it's kind of a little bit of an issue. But eventually, one of the last scenes that happens is that Rand meets Morthanis, and then he decides to go to sleep, and he meets Lanfear, and that's how the chapter ends, actually. The episode ends in a very interesting kind of situation there that you've seen in the trailers if you watch them. The other storyline is Perrin and Elias, and then Perrin and Aviendha. So Perrin and Elias are going through somewhere. They're kind of passing through. And Perrin gets mad at Elias when he realizes that they're back at Atuan's mill and that they have not been following the caravan that is taking people to Falm. They're actually running away in the other direction. He gets upset about this, but eventually he decides to go to the village because he is told by the wolves that Uno has not been buried. And so he decides to go and bury Uno, but as he's doing that, he actually doesn't manage to do this at all, which, again, weird writing, but whatever. And he meets Aviendha, who is an Aiel, and this scene is basically one very similar to the first scene where Tom and Matt interact, where they find the dead Aiel, but also very similar to the scene where Perrin meets Gaul for the first time. And instead of having Gaul, we have Aviendha, which is fine, but Gaul's such a cool character, and I like his relationship with Perrin, so I would have liked to see him, but I guess he can show up later. We still have to get introduced to Ruach as well, so there might be a situation where Ruach and Gaul happen to meet Rand, and then, in Falm or something, they end up also interacting with Perrin. So that might be how that happens. I'm not really sure. But he meets Avienda, and then he meets Dane Bornhold, the son of Jeffram Bornhold, the guy from the first season. And they hang out. They're actually having kind of a nice conversation. They're having fun. Eventually, Perrin realizes that everyone here is actually a White Cloak. So he tries to get a room, and he's going to spend the night. But then he hears Valda talking, and he decides to hightail it out of there. And he tries his best to ignore Avienda, but he can't. And so he goes to save her. And when he does this, he forgets to bury Uno, but also he and Avienda are captured or attacked or surrounded by Dane and his men. And so there's a very cool action sequence here. The music is interesting, but I do want to mention that overall, I don't like the music in the show. There's way too much vocalization. I understand some slight vocalization for certain things, but there's vocalization with Aes Sedai, there's vocalization for Aiel, there's vocalization for the Forsaken. Like, there's just too much like chanting and noise alongside the orchestra portion of the music, and I don't like that. I think that it's an interesting stylistic choice, but it doesn't work for me at all. So I don't know. Lorne Balfe really dropped the ball with that, in my opinion, but it is what it is. It's something that they like to do, I guess. So fine, but I don't like it. It just adds too much noise to stuff. So it is what it is. But they fed off Dane's men, and Perrin has been reluctant to fight this whole time. And in fact, he barely fought against the Shanchan when, Loyal and his friends were in danger. So I'm not really sure why, at this point, he's very willing to fight. It's not clear, it's not explained, and it makes it really difficult for me to care about this because in the books, it's very clear. He struggled with violence because it is a complex he had as a child, that he was big and strong and he hurt people accidentally, and he didn't want to do that. He realizes that he is turning into an animal, metaphorically, and he wants to avoid violence as much as possible. He is attracted by the way of the leaf, but eventually realizes that it's not possible for him to follow it because the wheel has woven him into a path that requires violence in order to protect those that he cares about. And he is struggling with this, and eventually Fael helps him break through this. The situation that happens at the Two Rivers also. But there is a very clear progression of non-violence for the sake of not hurting people, non-violence because he wants to avoid dealing with his wolf brotherness, and then violence to protect people. So far, we have not really gotten that explained to us clearly, and the fact that he protects Avienda, but he can, barely try to protect Loyal is a problem because he just met Avienda, and he's been friends with Loyal, for at least 6 months because there was a time skip at the beginning of the season. So, unless it's because she's a woman, which again was not explained well, and it's actually the only time that shouldn't work as an explanation because Aiel are clearly warrior women. And specifically, she shows this off by laughing at him when he tries to protect her. This causes an issue in the characterization of Perrin, which already was not that great because they took so long to get to the interesting stuff with Perrin. They actually made him kind of a loser in the first season, and they finally did something with him now, but it seems that it's not being well handled. And I really dislike this because we clearly know that they can handle characters well. They do they do Nynaeve and Egwene and Elaine and Leandrin amazingly. They're doing a great job with them, and Varen too. All of the female characters are being handled well, but none of the male characters are being handled well. And I don't like this. Like, dude, either you're being a blatant sexist and picking the female characters over the male characters, or you're just incompetent at half of your job, and that is a problem. That I don't like that. That is so shitty, dude. I don't know why it is, but it is very clear to see, and I don't like this because Perrin is by far one of the most interesting early storylines happening in the story because it is so maybe not relevant to the modern age, but it is something that is important, and it is just being sidelined for no reason. His thing, even though it requires a lot of verbalization because you can't think and be in his head, It would be really easy to do if you just have him constantly have conversations with people about the fact that he's not really ready to deal with the fact that he has to do violence. Or just have a situation where he talks to Loyal about it, because Loyal is also a giant person with a giant capacity for violence that chooses to be pacifistic. Like, one scene is all it takes, and that scene has not happened, and I don't like it. So, yeah. Like I said, the music is bad. I don't like the vocalization. And then we find a new plotline here, which is Varian in the White Tower. I enjoy this. She meets with the Browns. We get to see Cho Chang show up and have her insanely interesting Scottish accent that I really like. I think it's really cute. But she's a very interesting character. She goes to Sheriam. She talks to Sheriam, manages to force her out of her office. Cho Chang shows up to see what's going on. She has special super magic memory, and she uses it to show to Varian that there's hesitation in her writing, and that this is, exemplary of an issue, but they don't know what the issue is. So maybe it's that she forgot, maybe that she was being forced to do it for some reason, or that she was under compulsion, which then introduces the concept of the Black Aja, just in time for Leandrin to be shown doing Black Aja stuff, by capturing the girls, taking them through the ways, and leaving them at Falm with Lady Suroth, where Egwene is captured, collared, and put into, the stocks or whatever, the yard where the Damane are kept. Nynaeve and Elaine escape, and they're caught by a warder, and again, we have violence and kind of this, possible death scene for the sake of just impact that gets removed immediately because they immediately have an interaction where they're shown that they were not in danger at all. It was just an easy way to get them out of the street. So, again, I don't like this. They're doing this too often, and it doesn't work well. So it is what it is. But the last thing that happens here is also that Ishi and Lanfear, or Ishamal and Lanfear, have a conversation in Teleron Riyadh, and I like that they're using Teleron Riyadh a lot because it is a very important part of the books. However, I don't like that there is no easy signifier for people watching to understand that it's Teleron Riyadh. Like maybe, a fog filter or some sort of off coloration or something to invoke the understanding that they're in a metaphysical plane, in a place that is not real, would be really, really good. And the fact that they're not doing that and they didn't seem to think about it is concerning to me. So it is what it is. Those are my thoughts on season 5. Even though this is actually one of my favorite episodes, there's so many things here that upon rewatch and thinking about it, come out to me, that show themselves to me, that I'm kind of upset about. And it's also not necessarily because of the single episode. It's just things that I've noticed throughout the season that is just coming to a head here, in the first episode of the second half of the season. So there you go. Those are my thoughts on episode 5. Let me know what you guys thought down below. And thank you guys so much for watching. See you guys later.